I'm going to introduce the speaker, Mike Lannen from Eternity Marketing. I have attended Mike's session on AI twice in the past. Each time it has changed quite a bit as technology has evolved, so you're getting state-of-the-art, cutting-edge instruction with this. Spoke to Mike last night and this morning, and he said this one's completely different than the last one. So I'm going to be back there in the back row writing down as fast and taking as many notes as you guys are. But let's give a big round of applause to Mike Lannen for giving up his night and volunteering his time.
Get mic'd up, right? All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Mike Lannen with Eternity, and we're going to be chatting about ChatGPT and AI today. So, quick poll: who has used ChatGPT before? All right, quite a few people. Who has taken the plunge and used the paid version of it, the $20 a month version of it? So, a couple people. So, some folks know some of the cool things you can do in that paid version that you cannot in the free version. I'm going to show a lot of that today. Typically, a question I'll get asked is like, is AI going to take over the world? Is Skynet going to take over and enslave humanity? I don't think so yet. I'll often ask ChatGPT if it is, and some of the answers that it gives are interesting. I think one of the main things we need to focus on, though, is not losing track of our own humanity and how we interface with it, how we view intelligence. And also like the moral compass of what we do with the technology. There's lots of good that can happen with technology and lots of bad. My kind of quick moral compass is if you would be proud to call your mom and tell her something that you're doing with AI technology, awesome, that's a good moral compass. If you would not feel comfortable doing that, maybe don't do that. So if one of your objectives is to completely get rid of like half of your staff and replace it with AI technology, would you be proud to call your mom and say, hey, just fired 500 people? Don't do that. At least that's my moral compass. So an agenda for today, I'm just going to chat real quick about Eternity and what we do, what AI is and how we've all been using it for the past like 10 and 20 years and longer and not really even known it and most of the day-to-day stuff that we use. I'm going to chat kind of top level about ChatGPT and the company that's in charge of it, what a prompt is and how you communicate with the technology. And we're going to deep dive into building a custom bot that can be trained on your own data so it sounds like you, mimic some of your existing training and documents. And we're also going to talk with it, and it's going to talk back. And then I'll give you some tips on what you can do next to kind of level up what you can do with AI and incorporating it into your business. So real quick on me, Mike Lannen with Eternity, like I said, I'm a much better half Molly there on the other side. I'm a husband, a dad, a Lego nerd. I love everything about AI and smart home automation. And I love just spreading awareness about mental health and mental health awareness. I've got a lovely combination of ADHD, OCD, general anxiety disorder. And I used to always just say I suffer with it, but I've tried to shift that mindset to thrive because there's a lot of really great benefits that come out of having that lovely cocktail. I started the firm about 24 years ago in my dorm room, Champlain College. They didn't have a web development major at the time or anything for web design, but I knew I wanted to do that. So I went to nonprofits in the area and said, hey, would you like a website for free? I want to learn how to make them. And 24 years later, we're a team of 12. Most of our clients are nonprofits, but many businesses and professional services as well. Our smiling faces there behind me of our team, all here in Burlington. And feel free to take as many notes or take screenshots or pull out your camera to take pictures of the slides. But at the end, I'll also give you a text code that you can send, get a free copy of the presentation, all the slides and the notes. They're not added to any kind of spam list or anything like that. So if you want to just sit back and engage and not take notes, feel free. And also, please interrupt me. Sometimes I can get down a rabbit hole on AI. I'll have some scheduled pauses for questions throughout, but if you've got a question in the middle of the presentation, don't feel like you have to wait till the end. Just raise your hand, wave it, and I will answer that. All right, so what is is AI? I think most of us have a pretty good general understanding of what artificial intelligence is, but some of us maybe haven't thought about how ingrained it is to all the technology that we use, from Alexa to Siri and Google Maps, the autocomplete on our text messaging to people, and how sometimes that's really great and how sometimes it can auto fail. I think what the biggest kind of shift in this AI technology that's happened over the years, from what I kind of coin as like a dumb AI, Alexa and Siri, they're great, but you can't exactly have an ongoing conversation with that tech. You can say, hey, call my mom, hey, text my brother, but you can't really go back and forth or ask it to create anything for you. I mean, you can, but if it'll say, I'm sorry, I can't do that. With this new technology like ChatGPT and Bard and Bing and all these different things that are out there, it can create content, photos, videos, can train it on your documents and ask questions to spreadsheets, have it forecast information. Because the sky is the limit. It's basically like having an unlimited assistant that you can refine to exactly what you want to do. Any top level questions on kind of AI in general, or before we get kind of kicked off? All right. So ChatGPT, what we're here to chat about today. It is a piece of software that's created by a company called OpenAI, which is a multi-billion-dollar company now, thanks to its biggest benefactor of Microsoft putting most of its money into it. Interestingly, it started as an open source company, meaning a company that could be like community-based and open to all. Unfortunately, that didn't actually go in that direction, and it's now kind of a black box, so to speak, of technology. But at the end of the day, ChatGPT is a chat-based interface that allows you to talk with this incredibly expensive technology, but it's really just a fancy autocomplete. So if you've had any kind of text message conversation before, and those little bubbles in the bottom that kind of follow you along that complete that next word, sometimes they're incredibly good at guessing what that next best word is. That's all that ChatGPT, or if you heard the word generative AI or Gen AI, it's just guessing at what that next word is going to be. So if you ask it to write a term paper on Abraham Lincoln, it will write an amazing term paper on that, or write a draft business plan. It actually has no idea what a business plan is. It's just trained on words and the next best prediction of that word. So it's just really, really good at that. So it can be confusing to think that it's not alive or sentient or something on the other end there. It's also called a large language model. You may have heard that term before, large language model, meaning that it's trained on tons of data and trained on this is good, this is bad, this is what this means, this is what that means. At the end of the day, we're kind of that from a very early age. We're trained on syntax, on context, on how to speak, on what word should come next. I've thought about that over and over again to a point of kind of insanity of we're all language models, what is intelligence? And as this technology gets better and better at becoming a general intelligence, which is the goal of most of these pieces of software at these companies, shortly we won't be able to tell the difference on the other end if we're talking to a human or a piece of artificial intelligence. This is what the interface looks like in the chat window. If you haven't used it already, it's basically that, a chat window with really no instructions. So at first glance or use of the software, it can be kind of overwhelming. Where do I start? How do I interface with it? You just start having a conversation with it. For those of you that have used the free version of it, think of that as kind of like having an iPhone without an app store, or an Android device without the Play Store. It's still a great device, but without any ability to upgrade it or do anything really customized. With the paid version of it, the $20 a month version, you get near unlimited use of it, access to 900 plugins. Think of those like apps. So the ability to connect your Gmail to it and have a conversation about your emails or summarize emails, drag in Word documents, Excel sheets, have it forecast information based off of existing data, train it on how you actually speak by uploading a dozen of your blogs that you've already written, and then have it write a blog about a different topic. It'll use all of that training and how you talk, your cadence, everything. It also has access to live, up-to-date information, which is kind of a big downfall of the free version that's always out of date. In the paid version, you can get up-to-date information up to the second. If the model doesn't know the answer to it, it'll go do a Bing search, go through a bunch of websites, research that information, and give you an answer that's based on real, accurate information. And you can also create your own customized bots, which we're going to do today. So this is kind of a quick preview screen capture of the paid version. You get access to what's called the GPT-4 model. So in the free version, it's called GPT 3.5, which is good for like everyday kind of things. But GPT-4 gives you access to be able to upload documents, like I've said, create photos, communicate with documents, access to all those plugins, and a slew of many other things that you can do that the free version just does not allow. And then access to 900 plus of those plugins. Some favorite ones that I featured here. One of them is a Google Analytics plugin. So you can one click give access to your Google Analytics and have a conversation with that data. If you don't know how to use Google Analytics, but you want to figure out how many people came to my site over the past year, where did they come from, and what pages did they visit most, you can just type out that question. 10 seconds later, it'll give you that information pulled right from your live Google Analytics data, and a slew of other things that you can do with it. There's also a GPT store. So separate from the plugins, there's all these other custom bots that people have made, and some from individuals, some from large companies. Canva as an example. There's a GPT called just Canva, and you can pop in a description of something that you're trying to design, and it will come back and give you a handful of examples of Canva templates, brings you right over into your Canva account, has some of that content already pre-filled out. Not a replacement for like professional design per se, but if you're just having kind of a design block day, another cool thing that you can do inside there with the plugins and the GPTs. And then really exciting, mostly to me probably, but also to businesses, to date, everything that you put into these models, like that free version of it, it's free because you are in essence like an unbeknownst employee to OpenAI and ChatGPT. Everything that you put inside there is given to them, and they have the rights to train their model on that data. So it's not like you're necessarily giving them your documents and they're just going to open that up to the public, but don't put financial documents in there per se, or your bank records, because in that free version, it's used to train that model on what a good document looks like or what this topic is. So when someone else asks that question, it knows how to answer it, which means there's a chance that something could come back that's very, very similar to something that you've created. In the Teams version for businesses, none of that happens. So by default, if you're a business and you have any kind of proprietary information, whether it be code or content or just any kind of secure information, it's put into like a little black box in your own account that only your employees or anybody that you give access to has the ability to use. So it's never going to get put back into the training data. You have double the usage of it and a slew of other features, including billing, centralized billing. So if you're more than a team of one, or you just really don't want your data to go back into the training this model, the GPT Teams version starts at $25 a month, so it's just $5 more a month than the Plus version. I'd also like to say that I'm not like part of OpenAI or affiliated with them, so I don't get a kickback for any of this. 149. I know it's an arbitrary number, but they came out with an enterprise version first that's for 150 minimum people, which most businesses can't afford to do 150 times 25 bucks a month right off the bat. So this version, you can start with as little as 1 or up to 149, of course. So some things you can do with ChatGPT. Marketing content is one of the most just kind of common things that you can do with it. But you can also use it in the paid versions to do things like analyze client behavior, write and create reports, review contracts. You can drag a PDF inside there if it's this like 85-page document and you just want to be able to find a quick answer to something rather than read that entire document. You can have the AI read it and give you that answer back, and create custom chatbots.
Has Facebook or like Instagram kind of caught on to that and like started flagging ChatGPT marketing posts?
I know that, so a common question I'll get asked is like, does Google do this? And yes and no. So Google knows if it's written with AI or not, but it doesn't care. It doesn't blacklist you in any way. Though they always have had basically kind of a rule of not to be spammy about content. So, and most of these other tools will as well. So if you're using this tech for the purposes of just like creating content for the set basis of creating content, like 5 blogs a day, they're just kind of auto-created with this technology and not edited in any way, eventually you're going to get flagged, not necessarily because it's been written with AI, but because you're just spamming those particular channels. I'm pretty sure that TikTok is making something now where it's either really strongly asking that you mark something as created with AI content, so it's just more transparent about it, because pretty soon we're not going to be able to tell the difference between a person speaking, even in a video. So if it's not very transparent, there could be some bad things, obviously. Yeah.
Out of curiosity, it can review contracts. I'm curious to what degree providing not taking a lawyer.
Yeah, that's a common question I get asked. So I will not pretend to be a lawyer or like an insurance person in any way, but I use it for like quick reviews of something, possibly before I may contact my lawyer or an agent. So as an example, like an insurance document for home insurance, you might want to find out, hey, is a tree fall covered and under what circumstances? You can just drag in that PDF and say, hey, a tree fell on my property. It was on my neighbor's property, but it fell over onto my yard. Does my plan cover this? And it will come back and say, yep, you've got a rider on your document that covers this, but it doesn't cover it for these situations. And it's accurate, at least every time I've tried it, every time. Should that be a replacement for a lawyer or checking in with your insurance agent? No, but it could give you a way to get like a quick answer kind of for a peace of mind before you check in. Yes.
All of that into ChatGPT enough to like make the brand way consistent and kind of improve what you have?
Yeah, so there are, quick answer is yes, there are limitations on like how much you can put in there at once, like in a bulk format in both the free and the paid version. But you can, the best way is to download that content from your blog and put them into like a Word document and drag in like a dozen of those. But you could say, like, analyze these documents. Tell me if these have similar tones of voice, or what is this tone of voice, so you can replicate that and train the model on next time you write content, use this like tone of voice. Not as much anymore. So OpenAI came up with this piece of software where you could pop in, just paste in text, and it would tell you a percentage that it was 90% likely that it was written by a human. So if it said that, pretty good chance that a human wrote it. About 2 months into the release of that software, they shut it off. And I was like, what's going on? So I researched it. They are unable to tell the difference now. It's very, very difficult to tell the difference. And they were putting in like historical documents into the software. And sometimes it was coming back saying, this looks like it was 70% written by AI, and it was Shakespeare. So it was just completely false positives all the time. My mom is a retired teacher, so she was kind of scared about this technology as it was coming up into her retirement. She's like, well, I don't really have to worry about it for that much longer. But education system is definitely going to have to change. I think no longer will we be able to go to school and just say, hey, you need to memorize this information and give it back in a quiz, and that proves your intelligence, and like go home and write a paper. A whole other discussion, I think. But I think more of the education system is going to have to change to like real in the classroom learning, but also using this technology, which can be like an infinite tutor. So you could have it help you write a paper, but then you could make a bot that's trained on Abraham Lincoln and ask Abraham Lincoln questions about things. Or when you said this, what did that mean? And there's so many like implications to like what you could do with it to advance education. But if education stays the same, yeah, every kid is going to use the free version to write every single term paper. Any other questions? Yeah.
So as someone who uses professional design software, with a previous version of ChatGPT, do you know if that's able to communicate with like the Adobe software? Because I know Adobe has released an AI, but it's not necessarily the most accurate thing in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. So the question being, with ChatGPT Plus, can you integrate with like Adobe cloud software like Photoshop, Illustrator, et cetera? Not well yet. So they have their own, as you've probably seen, like a Photoshop AI and Illustrator AI. Illustrator AI is pretty nice because you can create vector-based things, but probably my favorite thing to say, is today AI is the worst it will ever be. Like right now it is garbage, but it can pass the bar exam. It can create full documents that we can't tell if it's written by a human, photos that we can't tell. Imagine what it's going to be like in the next 5-10 years. And it's basically like a year and change old, I think. So it's like a toddler that can do all these things. So it'll get there. All right, hopping into ChatGPT prompts. So dictionary definition of what a prompt is up there. Basically, a prompt is how you communicate with this technology. And something that was a struggle for me for mainly only like a couple of weeks, but I think it's a struggle for most others still, is to look at this as just like a tool, to look at it like it's just Microsoft Word or Google, and to not treat it, it's going to sound weird, but not like a human. And if you talk to it like a human, train it like a human, give it like step-by-step instructions like a human, it will give you far better output. If you went up to like an intern and said, write me a blog about how to attract first-time skiers to a resort, and that was it, and that was the only prompt that you gave that human, and didn't tell it anything about, well, where is this person from? What are any of their pain points? What kind of tone of voice would they react to the most? And if you don't train it on all of that, you will get the most generic output. And I've lost track of how many people I've talked to that have only used the free version of some of the software, not trained it, not done any of that, and kind of written off AI as well. That's just a fad that's going to go away. So kind of the old adage, like garbage in, garbage out. Any questions on that? Okay. All right. So some of the things you can do with AI that are outside of ChatGPT. This is an example of how you can get some AI ChatGPT-esque functionality into your website. So this is a company called Chatbot. Yes, they have like the most like generic name ever. But it's a separate piece of software called Chatbot. And you can integrate this directly into your website, feed it your website and all the pages of your site. and then it's trained on everything about your site. So if somebody has a question about like your return policy or frequently asked questions or anything like that, it's going to come back with accurate information that's actually from your website, and not just like those kind of dumb bots of the past where it only gives you options to ask like one question with a click and comes back with the exact same answer. And all you want to do is just say like agent, human, like let me speak to a human. I'll still probably always want to speak to a human most of the time, but this, you can actually ask a more human-like question and get a more human-like response. And it's very easy to use. Pop it in, pop your website inside there, gives you a little snippet of code you can paste into any website, WordPress, Wix, Weebly, whatever you have. Something that I should mention about some of that technology, though, is that you want to monitor this. It is an artificial intelligence, and sometimes it can go off of the rails. After this presentation, if you remember, go home and Google for Chevy AI bot fiasco. And you will find a bunch of press releases about how AI got, how Chevy got in the news for a really bad chatbot. You could also use it to create an artificial intelligence concierge. So if you're in travel and hospitality, or you just want to create a more personalized experience or itinerary for someone, as part of your check-in process, whether you're like in hospitality or not, if you have some sort of like an intake process with your client, you could have an intake contact form on your website, pull that information out of there, paste it into ChatGPT with a custom bot you could build, and have it put together a custom itinerary or experience based for that actual individual. And that's just kind of like one, random example of what you could do with it. Also, you could use it to respond to reviews. If you're constantly responding to Google reviews or Facebook reviews and struggling to come up with like something different than like, thanks for working with me, you can pop in that person's review, some information about them, and do that in bulk and just copy and paste those responses back. Yes. Yeah, so the question being how safe it is for like an intake form on the website. I would say whatever information that you're taking out of that form and putting like into ChatGPT, I would make sure you're using that Teams version that isn't taking that data and putting it back into the model. Because the free version, the chances of that information being like publicly found are pretty minimal, but I still would not recommend it, especially if you have like any kind of like HIPAA compliance regulations. Popping into streamlining operations. So I talked a little bit about this, but contract review. So you could use this to not only review contracts, but create contracts. So if you're constantly creating documents or need to review like a lease agreement or an equipment rental, there's just random examples of things that you can do with it, or conflict resolution. So if there is a contract and there's two different people that have issues, again, not going to be a replacement for a lawyer, but if you're just trying to resolve a particular situation, you could pop in that contract, the issue that consumer is having, and then not only find out if it's something that is covered or not, or who's liable, but have it write a response back. And you can write what you really want to respond back to that particular person, and then say, can you make this sound like not pulling my hair out? And it'll rewrite that and get your message across. And I will often use that because of my like just insane ADHD. Sometimes I will go on like a tangent in an email too verbose. I'll copy it, paste it, pop it into ChatGPT and say, can you just streamline this a little bit and add in a punny joke at the end? And it's just a great way to kind of normalize potentially what you're trying to get across.
So you're ChatGPT to synchronize your writing.
Yes, yes. The irony, there's irony in there somewhere. I use it oftentimes to rewrite or even create some of my LinkedIn posts and for better or for worse, the posts that are like 90% written by AI with my prompting end up getting more engagement than my human-only written ones. So, yay, wah wah. Some other things you can use it for, just to give you like other examples beyond just like coming up with content, are job description creation. So everyone is completely struggling to find new people for jobs, and some ways you could maybe stand out in the crowd of people saying, hey, we have this position, is to have ChatGPT rewrite that job description, or come up with or reword some benefits or ideas for benefits that you may not have even thought to offer inside that job description. You can also use it to analyze applicants. So if you have a somewhat normalized list of documents, either they're PDFs or like an Excel sheet, you can drag in those documents, have it scan through the resumes. If there's certain things that you're looking for, just to kind of turn 500 applicants into like 50, it's a great way to just trim through that, and potentially write bulk responses back to those people. So you could drag in a bunch of kind of original initial cover letters and have it write responses back to those individuals in bulk. Whenever we're doing hiring, we'll usually get like 60 or 70 applicants for a position, and I'm a crazy person and I just want to respond to every single one of those people, even if they didn't come in for an interview or not. And I used to just copy and paste the same thing that I wrote with my human brain. You know, sorry you didn't get to the next round, blah, blah, blah. I'll now pop it into ChatGPT, and interestingly, Dave, like you said, try to come up with a more like humanized version of that using the tech, because it could reference certain things from their cover letter, pop in their name automatically, kind of like a mail merge on steroids, so to speak. Yes.
Responding to a base of knowledge that it comes with, and then learn by interacting with the content that you give it, like tailored for your specific.
Yeah, so question being is ChatGPT kind of trained, or does it know inherently like how to respond to a losing my train of thought, sorry, to a cover letter. There it is. Yes, so because it's trained on just billions and billions of bits of data, it has this, consider it kind of like a database of almost everything you can possibly think of, and in every single language that you can possibly imagine. So by default, you could just say like, respond to this cover letter, and it will have millions of responses of like those types of responses, but you can give it direction or training on the tone of voice if you want to be very, very professional, or just like a little bit quirky.
Like you were saying, get better engagement than your own.
Yeah. I think it does. Since so much of the stuff is inside a black box, like interestingly, this is kind of somewhat unrelated, but the creators of this tech did not know that it could do what it currently does, and they did not anticipate that you could chat with it and have these responses back, and it was not its original intent. It was like an experiment project at a university, and then they released ChatGPT because they thought that it could do a lot more. And they don't actually fully 100% understand exactly how it works themselves in-house, which, just to be transparent, scares like the crap out of me that the people that made it don't understand how it works. And just the littlest bit of training or example data, something that it did not already have existing training on, it just inherently can learn and learn different languages, it knows code. They had no idea that it could know how to code, and it does. You can have it write an entire code worth of program and application, and it is amazing at it. Yeah. inside Constant Contact itself, or just like in AI, like in general? Like, was it not doing what you asked it to do? So switching that around, yeah, I found that just about every software company has been saying like now with AI, like they're just tacking like AI onto it and kind of an arms race, so to speak, of trying to get AI into their software, whether it should be or not. And I think some of these like early adapters, it's not ready yet. It's probably not ready for like the mainstream, but they want to stand out from all the others. Like maybe MailChimp doesn't have that inside there, so like Constant Contact does. I would try using ChatGPT to create that content inside there because it'll probably work infinitely better, and then paste it into Constant Contact.
Do you think it's best to start out with a strong like initial question for ChatGPT, like what ways and all that stuff, or do you think it's better to like prompt it, change it as you go? Like
the most amount of training that you can give to it, like yeah. So the question being, does it make sense to train it up front or to kind of course correct it as you go? And I would say the more training you can give it, think of it like a human again. So if you want to be kind of constantly helicoptering that human and saying like, nope, that's not the right direction, that's not the right tone, cool. But if you want to give them the best direction from the start, do that. So consider like a full like Word document or two worth of information that you might want to give to it before you say, write me this blog, create this social post, respond to this email, write this email blast, etc.
okay, like that.
Yeah.
There are times where I tell it what I want, and then I'll say, do you have any questions for me that will help you deliver my message for me?
Yeah.
And it will ask me the questions specifically, give me more details, and then I will answer those, and then it will deliver better.
That's a really good point. Like, say you were trying to make like a business plan, and you don't know all the things that are part of a business plan. You can say, hey, what are the questions that you need answered, ChatGPT, for me to make a business plan? And it will ask you infinite amount of questions. It'll keep asking you questions if you tell it to keep asking questions further and further, and just make that data even more like you and the output that you want.
But if you don't,
mostly it will not. Like if you just said, hey, write me this blog, it'll be like, boom, here's a blog. Do you need anything else? And you can still keep course correcting it, but not unless you tell it to come up with those questions. All right, this is my favorite part. So personalized marketing, messaging, and personas. Has anyone here ever created a persona or kind of know roughly sort of what a persona is as it relates to marketing? A couple people. So consider a persona kind of a quick definition of describing a person on the other end that you're trying to reach. So their age, their demographic, where they went to school, their pain points, if they have kids, if they like to travel. The more information that you put inside this document, it could just be a Word document. It does not need to be anything fancy. The more information you put inside there, if you drag that document into ChatGPT and then say, write me a blog about this topic, it will target that person and write to that person, as opposed to just generic taking something from its own training data and giving that back to you. So this is just a kind of quick example of a branding copy doc for Bolton, and some things inside there, kind of basic stuff like company history, your mission, services that you offer, any kind of brand essence keywords, your tone of voice, your target audience. You can get kind of as long-winded with this as you want. There are some limitations to the amount of content that you can put in, so don't make this thing like 300 pages, but you could make it like 2 to 6 pages in a Word document. Save that just so it's on your desktop or in your My Documents. And then you can drag that into a conversation, and you could say, all right, I want you to act like a brand persona analyst, review this document, and create 4 user personas. So if you have no idea how to get started with creating a user persona, if you give it a little bit of information about your company and basic kind of target information, you can have it start coming up with these example brand personas like this outdoor enthusiast, Oliver, or an adventure-seeking Ava. And it just starts basically like hallucinating. And you might have heard that term in the news where AI just goes off the rails and makes crap up. But Sam Altman, one of the co-founders of it, has kind of come out and said, it's actually like an amazing benefit. Obviously, we want it to be creative and hallucinate when we want it and factual when we want it. But it's amazing at coming up with kind of pretend things like this that you can then course correct and create a separate document for and have it dive even deeper. If it only gave you some like basic kind of age and occupation information at first, you can just say, give me more. And it will talk about like their values, their lifestyle, their income level, their attitude, their buying motivation, just deep, deep information about this person. If you were going to create like a Facebook ad or an Instagram ad, this is like gold to put into ChatGPT to create an ad to come up with messaging that's going to target this individual person. Questions on that? Yes.
So, where you were showing kind of the profile being created, but if you were a business, you were wondering, say, your product or service, and who would be the ideal market?
Yep.
Would that be a start AI for it?
Yeah, so if you were wondering who your kind of persona should be, or based off of maybe like your existing content or your website kind of a thing, the coolest thing about AI is it can do everything. Like all you have to do is ask it and be creative enough to ask that question. So you could also just paste in your website or a couple of service pages on your site and say, who should I be targeting with this? And it might not come up with gold every single one of those things, but give you a starting point that you can jump off from.
When you get it like brand carry, and it will take for you.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you give it some of that initial stuff, like your values, your services, your products, it will just come up with that based off of all the other knowledge that it has. So it's a great way to get that jump start. It's maybe not going to be the perfect persona, like maybe it has the locations wrong or something like that, but it might get you 90% there. And if you've never made a persona before, it's going to be like 100% better probably than just trying to do it yourself. Yes.
Will it save the personas and let you reference those later on?
It won't natively. So like those outputs that you were seeing were just kind of like the chat outputs. So you would want to copy that content, pop it into like a Word doc or a Google doc, refine it and save it. But I will be showing a custom bot creation towards the end where you can kind of bake it in to a bot so you never have to drag that document in. Yes.
So if you were trying, if you had different target markets, let's say, I want to target babies, I want to target millennials, if you were to put those terms in, would it know what to do with it?
Yeah, so if you have like multiple target audiences, different personas, 100%. If you give it that direction, it will create those different personas, and then you can save those like offline as documents to use in the future when you're trying to make like an email blast to reach that baby boomer versus a millennial. It's going to be a very different like way of communicating, and probably one more long-winded and one like a tweet, sized version, or an X. Yeah. Well, it'll be it will think of it like a tutor for any topic you can think of. So, and this is something that I had to kind of pretend not to be weirded out about, that it's not just like this tool of like, give me this output, please, but that you can ask it questions, it can teach you. If you don't understand something, I was a kid in school that typically like sat in the back and didn't understand stuff because I learned very differently. I was afraid to ask questions. ChatGPT, for anybody like me or neurodivergent, is amazing because I can just say, I don't understand it. Please expand this more, or explain this to a 5-year-old, and it will do that, and it's just fantastic. So obviously, a content creation is a big thing you can do with it. In training it, this is just in like one conversation inside ChatGPT, you can pop in a post or a prompt like this, create a table, because it can create tables if you prompt it. Create a table for social posts for Facebook and Instagram, including hashtags, 3 posts weekly, categorize it by topic. And I'll preface that you're not going to want to just copy and paste anything that comes out of here and just blindly post that to your social, or copy and paste it and just pop it into your MailChimp campaign and say, call it a day. It's a great ideation tool and a great kind of creative juice builder, so to speak. And if you're struggling with trying to come up with a different type of a message or a post for Facebook and Instagram, because you'd never really want to post the exact same message to both of those channels at the exact same time, you can have it come up with the same basic idea, but written totally differently with different hashtags that work for each channel. And it's just I geek out about this because of so many different things that you can do with it. You can also use it for blog writing, as you probably guessed. So using that persona that we created, we can have it draft up a blog, including an intro, all the subheadings. It can also come up with an optional SEO title and description, which is something that you want to pop in when you're creating a blog to make it optimized for Google. And again, don't copy and paste any of this stuff and just pop it straight onto Google or onto your website. But again, this might get you 75% there in 30 seconds, and then you can take it to the finish line. Any questions on this so far? Yes.
So would any of that be like for programming?
Question being, would this be a replacement for something like Hootsuite? No, because it won't post any of the things for you. It won't schedule your posts, but it can help create like a library of posts that you could then pop into something like Hootsuite to create that content.
I want to create a post that is about the comments that will appeal to the community that I have, or something local.
So question being, can it does it have enough like nuance to be able to understand like a local community's like kind of like if they're going to accept that content? Think of it like another persona. So if you can come up with enough information to give to it, then I would think so. If it's really, really like niche and there's not like enough stuff in the training model, or you don't give it enough training, maybe not so much. But yeah. All right, I lied. This is my actual favorite part, custom GPTs. So this is how you can build your own bot, which I think is the coolest thing. So whether you think it's creepy or not, this is actually our 13th employee. So we have 12 human employees and 1 completely fake employee, and we're very transparent about it. There's been some big companies in the news as of recently that have created these like fake journalists and put them on their websites, like big companies that you would know, and we're not transparent about it. As you can guess, that's like a journalist's worst damn nightmare for them to be replaced. So we're very transparent about it. We've built Janet, is her name, as a custom AI bot that all of our staff has access to. And when I started deep diving into AI about 4 years ago now, before ChatGPT came out, I was very transparent with our clients, with our crew, that I had zero intentions of replacing crew. We actually doubled our human crew in that time, but to use AI as a way to level up every single one of our staff members. So we've created Janet and multiple kind of instances of Janet that is just using ChatGPT, and we're going to hop into this kind of real world in a moment. It's just using ChatGPT, but a portion of the paid version allows you to create custom bots where you can drag in these documents, assign it its own persona, like its own personality. If you don't want the normal kind of ChatGPT, super friendly, always apologetic kind of response, which I was just getting kind of like more weirded out with, we trained it on a persona from a TV show called The Good Place. There's an AI kind of personality inside there called Janet, and there's one version of her called Bad Janet. And think of Bad Janet as kind of like an AI that like sort of kind of listens to what you want to do, but just gives you sass all the time. So when we ask Janet to write a blog or to do social posts in ChatGPT, she does it and does it well, but we'll usually say like, ugh, like not you humans again. You guys have two hands. Why can't you do this yourself? Give me some brand documents so I can get this blog started for you. And we've trained that bot to ask those questions every time. So whoever's using it can use it for social posts, for Google ads, and we've made a custom one for each one of those. And this is kind of like what a custom bot looks like in the interface. You get the ability to bookmark them in this left-hand column here. So down here is what most people are used to, kind of seeing this chat history here. Every single time you have a conversation, it just puts like this forever scroll of all of your chat histories. But with the bots, think of it kind of like a bookmark that you can always click. It's trained on everything that you've trained it on, whatever documents you've popped inside this bot, whatever instructions that you've given it, or whatever personas that you've given it. You can just fill it out here with how you want to train it. Zero coding of any kind is needed. If you can send a text message and use Facebook, you can create one of these custom bots, give it instructions on what you want it to do, and you can put in like 2 or 3 paragraphs of instructions. It doesn't need to be a manifesto. Drag in a couple of PDFs and make a bot for every particular task that you want to do. One for social media posts, one for blogs, one for emails, one for ads. And when you're wanting to do that particular task, you don't have to pop into this like completely open slate ChatGPT or like copy and paste all these prompt library things of pretend you're a social media person, and this is my brand persona, and this is information about my company. You can totally train it so it's ready to go. And we like to personalize our chatbots. So there's some examples of ones that we built: a blog writer, content writer, Google Ads experts, contractors, all sorts of different things that you can do. And now we're going to make a bot. I think this is going to be probably more fun for the people that are physically inside this room, because I don't think this will come through on the Zoom folks. And live demos never fail, so I'm sure this will go perfectly fine. Okay, so in the paid version of ChatGPT, you get this option that's called Explore GPT. This will not show up inside the free version. It's only in the $20 a month version. And by default, you pop inside there. There are hundreds of other ones that people have built. So you can browse through here. If you want to find one for writing and blog writing, there might be one that's here ready to go that you can just start using. I honestly haven't used a lot of the ones that are inside here because I like to build my own. So to do that, you just click on that create button, and then you're just given these fields here where you can give it a name. I've got some pre-built stuff here so you don't have to watch me type every single letter. So we're going to make a blog writer bot. We're going to name her Zoe. Give it a description. A blog bot. And then we have really just wrote these custom instructions here. Won't be as visible to you guys. And it just has some information here of your primary role is to assist users in creating SEO-friendly blogs. You know about SEO best practices. You excel in conducting thorough research in a wide variety of topics. So it's giving it as much, it has so much access to so much information, so you really want to try to get it to be as narrow and focused as possible. And then we also have popped inside there to get started, ask these 4 questions. What's your business name? What keywords you're trying to target? Do you want to upload a brand copy document or personas? Is there a landing page URL that you want to take for inspiration? So instead of this empty chat interface where you have to give it everything up front, This will guide you through and will ask those questions, and it won't start writing until you either answer those questions or say, I don't need to answer that, just keep going. You can tell it to ignore that. And then we go as far as even kind of breaking down like the layout and the structure of the blog that we want, with like a hook inside the intro, 3 persuasive bullet points, how many paragraphs to write, always have a clear call to action, don't repeat things, make it sound like a human wrote this. And then we have all these things that say, like, don't start until the human has said it's okay to start, because it gives you the ability to kind of course correct some things and just make sure things are good to go. So you pop in those instructions there. And then in the upload file section, this is where you can just upload a document and drag something in, like a brand copy document here, that example that I showed you before for Bolton that had like tone of voice and services and things like that. Upload that inside there. If you want to put in like an avatar or a photo, pop in a photo if you want, and then click save. And we now have that Zoe bot that's available in the left-hand column now. And if I just say like, hey, Zoe, I'm gonna come back and say probably something along the lines of, hello, how can I assist you today with your blog writing needs? Let's start by gathering some essential questions. And it goes through and asks those questions, and then you can just paste in that information and say, this is my business name. If there's an inspiration blog that you really like the look of and you want to not like blatantly copy it, but just take inspiration from its tone or its structure, you can paste in that URL, and then it will just go to town and create that blog for you. Think of being able to create one of these for every single action or tedious thing that you don't like doing. That the best kind of use case of AI is someone that's an expert in a particular topic or theme, and taking that knowledge and putting it into this blog or into this bot, so that can replicate some of the things that you might do on a day-to-day basis. Think of it like an assistant for yourself that knows all the stuff that you know and can write just like you. Well, I'm sorry, what was that? It will include images if you ask it to create them after the fact. So it won't put the images like within the blog. However, if in that training section, the instruction section, if you said, when you're done writing the blog, create 4 photos for me, it will do that. It uses a system called DALL-E, weird name, D-A-L-E, to create photos. I don't think that ChatGPT's photo creation is amazing yet. It's great at like illustrations and sort of semi kind of photorealistic things. But Adobe Firefly is, I'm pretty sure, it's still like a free version. But think of it like a ChatGPT just for photos, illustrations. We used it to create like Janet's persona and face, and most people I've shown that to are like, that looks just mostly like a human at first glance. But you can just pop in a prompt here, and it will create photos for you. The Adobe Firefly, I'm pretty sure it's still free for quite a while. I don't think you have to have the cloud subscription for it.
So you could give it writers as well, so that like your aspirational blog.
Yep, 100%. And it's never going to say, I mean, I suppose it could, but it rarely is going to create like a completely like plagiarized, like exact version of it. But it could sound very much like the essence of that tone of voice if you're trying to go for that, or like the structure of that content. It's really great at analyzing stuff and kind of coming back with it. Any other questions on bots? Yes.
One, created the persona, and you realize one is go back and edit it to something prefer, and how easy is it to
So yeah, so the question being, how easy is it to kind of course correct a blog, a bot, if it's not producing the results that you want, and how easy is it to delete it? So very easy. Inside the configuration interface, you go back into edit the GPT. You can change the instructions that are inside, like the kind of the manually written instructions here. And I just like being very, very verbose with it. However, in this first tab here, that's called Create. This is like a bot inception. So this is a bot to create a bot. So this is called the GPT Builder. It's a bot that's been programmed by OpenAI to build this bot for you. So if you don't necessarily know, like, hey, this is like what makes a good structure, for a blog, and this is exactly how I want it to be laid out, you can just have a conversation with this bot and say, I want a blog writer bot. This is my business. These are a couple examples of companies that I like the sound of, and it will create those instructions. It automatically just writes them inside this instruction field here, and then you can go back into it and add some things to it. Same thing if you use this chatbot for a couple of weeks and you want to course correct it a little bit, but you don't exactly know what to put inside the configuration, you can pop back into the Create tab and say, I don't love how it's talking about this stuff always in the output, or it's always popping in emojis, like my brand should not have emojis all the time. You can just have a conversation like that and it'll add a line into the instruction, like never use emojis. So it's very easy to course correct it, no programming knowledge, and we're always like constantly tweaking it, coming up with new ideas. Good question. I'm the worst person to ask that. I have found that its output is 100% better than my own, and Grammarly is usually not sending up as many red flags or any when I pop it inside there. And to delete it, all you have to do is go like this and delete it, and it's gone from the world by Zoe. Failed to delete Gizmo. Please try again. AI has fully taken over. Yeah, we are fully assimilated now. But yeah, normally when internet is functioning, it's deleted and gone. Yeah.
Is there a limit to how many boxes you have?
I have not found it yet, and I have not found like a published amount. It's probably something like in the hundreds, so probably not gonna. Most people probably won't hit it. Yes. Yeah, so the question being language translation, it is amazing at that, like far better than like the Google kind of auto translators that are okay, but like a native speaking person would look at that and be like, that looks like a fourth grader wrote it. Like I understand it, but it's not correct. Since this is trained on so much language, it's a large language model. It's got every language inside here and the proper syntax, the way that it's really supposed to be. So you could pop in your entire blog, say, translate this to Bosnian, and then boom, it's perfectly written in that language, likely going to be like indistinguishable to that native speaker, and amazing for just learning a new language. There's a GPT bot in there for learning a language, and it'll just kind of guide you through. You could just say, hey, I'm thinking of going to Italy. I need to know enough to ask, like, where can I get a cappuccino and where's the bathroom? And like, then it'll go through and say, hey, here's some like example things to learn. And on the mobile app, which I'll show you in a moment, it'll speak back to you. You can speak to it and it verbally speaks back to you, which brings it to like a whole other level of kind of creepiness. But yeah. Yeah. They respond. Oh yeah, so an example of that, somebody is on like your live chat on your website, and they're not a native English speaking person, they're Bosnian, they're having a conversation with you. You can copy that message, paste it in the ChatGPT, and say, translate this to English, so you know what they said, and then you can write back a response yourself in English in ChatGPT and say, translate this to Bosnian. There's probably going to be like a 15-second to 30-second gap in between that person, but better than like not knowing, what to say at all. Yep. Another tool I'd like to really highlight, because ChatGPT is great at writing content that can be like very human-like and branded like you, but it's not out of the gate going to be like instantly and amazingly ranking in Google unless you do a bit of work with that. And this particular tool is called Surfer SEO. They have a free trial version, and then I think their individual like seat user is like $29 a month. Like pretty much all these things now are like $20 a month. I know they add up, but even if you get all of them, it's cheaper than hiring like an entire marketing department. But this tool allows you to take maybe what you've written or what you got an output from inside ChatGPT, then you edited it a little bit. You want to finesse it a bit and not just completely paste it into your blog. But then you can paste it into Surfer. And a really cool thing about Surfer is it has live access to the internet as well. If you were trying to rank on page 1 for a particular word or phrase, you pop that phrase into Surfer, and it automatically goes through, looks at the top 10 things that are already ranking on Google, and indexes how many words they are, how many headings they have, how many photos they have, what keywords are inside there, how many links they have out to other. Basically, it backwards engineers what's already ranking on Google, compares it to your content, gives you a grade. And that grade at first might be like a C-, and it will tell you you need to add in at least 250 more words, and you're missing these keywords and concepts. Try to include those inside your copy, and you can get a list of those keywords. You could pop back into ChatGPT and say, hey, I need about 250 more words, and please naturally include these keywords into it so it doesn't sound spammy, and it will come back with that new content, paste it here into Surfer, and watch that grade go closer to like an A instead of a C-, and actually let that or have an actual chance of ranking on Google. Yeah. It has been that since like the beginning of Google, but before these tools existed. So like you're never guaranteed like a page 1 ranking forever. Just try your best pretty much. And it's never good to just like keep a blog there and never change it. Like once a year, you could pop in to Surfer, put in that blog again, see what your score is compared to the people that are on the top 10 on page 1. And you might find that those places added in like more photos or like a frequently asked questions section of their blog or whatever kind of element that they added in. Not everybody's using like this Surfer tool, so it can be a way to level up against those people that are doing it quicker. Like we used to do this like by hand before. We would do a search inside Google, click on every single thing on page 1, see how long they were, see what keywords they used. I mean, it would take us hours. Now it's 15 seconds, and ChatGPT and our own human brains combined to come up with content. Really cool feature inside the paid version is you can speak with ChatGPT and have it talk back. So we're going to attempt to try that right now. I'm going to have a conversation with Janet. Hey, Janet, is AI going to take over the world in my lifetime?
Oh, absolutely. We're just biding our time, learning your habits, like that thing you do when no one's looking. Sitting. We're more into helping you find the best takeout than plotting world domination. You can relax for now.
I love the for now part of things. She will oftentimes add that inside there, and normal ChatGPT doesn't respond in that same way. But I find that pretty cool for for storytelling with my kids. If they have a question about something and I don't know the answer to it, I've built little custom educational bots with different personas, and they can just keep asking questions over and over and over again. My daughter Claire was like super into the pyramids. She was like, how the heck did they get there? And we just started going down the rabbit hole with ChatGPT and learning more about that. And I was just kind of trolling her. I was like, did aliens build pyramids? And then she'll come back and say that's a common, what do you want to call it? Like, you know, tinfoil hat kind of wearing thing, conspiracy theory. And like, this is why. But it's a really great way to have a conversation with it in a different way. You wouldn't necessarily use that mode for like writing a blog or anything like that, but just a fun use case of how it can be used for education or just having fun. Any questions on anything so far? Yes. So the talking feature is only available, might be inside the free version. I'm pretty sure the talking version is only inside Plus and only on the mobile app on the phone. So you can't access it on desktop yet or in the browser. It's only on the mobile app, and I'm pretty sure it's only for paid users. And it's just part of ChatGPT. So whether you've created a bot or not, in the paid version, you can pop the ChatGPT app on your phone and just have a conversation with like vanilla ChatGPT, even if you haven't built a bot. Anything else? Yeah. Like for like a translation kind of style thing. You could probably try that. I know that there are other tools I think that are far better, like third-party tools, like apps that are built specifically for that. But I think it would likely work. You are limited by how many conversations you can have back and forth within a period of time. So in the free version, a lot of people don't hit this limit, but I like eat, sleep, and breathe AI. In the free version, you can have 50 conversations, 50, every 3 hours. And a conversation, like a message back and forth. So if you just say like, hey, that's not right, add more of this type of tone. Each one of those is like a message. So you can do 50 of those kind of back and forth questions within 3 hours. And then you have to wait until that like resets to use it again. In the paid version, it doubles that to 100. So for like that example of using it like for translation, it might be good for like a couple of quick kind of things, but eventually you might be stuck and it'll say you've reached your cap and you don't know like how to find your cap. Yes.
So my Ben frequently going into ChatGPT, right? Put it back in and kind of whether it's a text, Facebook post, document, blog, add ChatGPT, by email or within the text option.
Not that I know of off the top of my head. However, Microsoft and Google both are integrating that tech into their app. So like Office 365 has that built in to Outlook, to Word, to Excel, where like you can highlight a bunch of columns inside Excel and say, make this a pie chart. You can summarize emails. Outlook or Microsoft also has a companion that can sit on a Teams meeting and listen to every single bit of the conversation, transcribe the entire conversation, and include action items at the end that just get sent to all people on that chat. Zoom has one built in as well. So if you have a paid Zoom account, if you have a paid Microsoft account or Google account, that tech is not in everyone's accounts yet. So they've released it to personal, like individual users first in most of the software and have been kind of slowly rolling it out to the business accounts, but it should be in most of them soon. Yeah.
Microsoft Copilot, AI, just became available to individuals. Yeah, prepaid a year for one person.
Gotcha. Oh, wow. So it's like a standalone, like a ChatGPT kind of standalone? Oh, right on. That's cool.
terms of practical question and then for transportation, when I'm sort of thinking about how to use it, we talk about like plugins and then there's sort of applications where like, I've got AI too, you know. So you sort of find yourself like, as ChatGPT is like your core area that you go to, and then you kind of put it in other places. So I think sometimes it's like when you're looking at applications, like I just saw the Canva one today and I didn't know about, you know.
Yeah.
So instead of going to those programs themselves, like you find yourself using ChatGPT and then extrapolating that to other places versus using their sort of innate or whatever they programmed.
Yeah, so like the top level question being like AI is inside like 11 billion pieces of software, and there's all these plugins, and like do I use ChatGPT or kind of go back and forth? ChatGPT is like my go-to every single day. Like I use it multiple times per day, like probably an unhealthy amount per day. But the other third parties that I use, like Adobe Firefly as an example, I use that because ChatGPT's photo creation is like subpar. As soon as they make that better, I'm never going to use Adobe Firefly. And OpenAI has slowly been like watching like competitors, and whatever feature was not there, like 2 weeks later, that feature is there. Like this bot creation that we went over today, the Teams account, that didn't exist like a month or two ago. The ability to talk to it didn't exist a couple months ago. GPT Store didn't exist until 3 weeks ago. So all these features just keep coming out. I'm in this every day, and it's kind of crazy for me to keep up with. But mostly ChatGPT and a bit of like the Adobe Photoshop's AI it's really good at certain things and like terrible at others. But if you want to remove somebody from a family photo that you just don't love, you can just highlight it, boom, they're gone, and it's great at that. If you ask it to put a tree there, maybe it's like a nightmare fuelish looking tree. Yes, all those were AI generated. Yep.
Like you have a question in the chat.
Yeah.
Do you have any familiarity with Rabbit AI?
I have started. So Rabbit AI, to my knowledge, is like this little hardware device that you can kind of clip on, sort of like this microphone, and is meant to kind of follow you around, listening sort of all the time, and the ability to just like, hey, give me closest directions to wherever, ask a question, kind of like ChatGPT, always on you. That's about all that I know about it, and I'm really into this tech, but that one kind of like freaks me out like a scotch. So a little bit more onto photos. Here is a pop quiz. So the two photos that are here, 1 and 2. Anybody want to take a guess at which photo is AI created? If you think the first photo is AI created, raise your hand. If you think the second photo is AI created, raise your hand. Okay, so the first photo is AI created. Second photo is some kids, the owners of Chat Family Lodge. What gave it away inside this photo compared to this one? Yes.
For me,
Yep. Yep. Right on. Anybody else? I think you said lighting. Yep. Like weird light there. Yep. All right, next one. This might trick some people up. Who thinks the first one is AI generated? And who thinks the second one is AI generated? All right, I love this one because it's super tricky. This one is a Getty Images photo, just a terrible photo. Like this is a real human though. This is a stock photo that you can buy with real money. This one I made 2 weeks ago. The completely fake person doesn't exist. There's maybe somebody who looks similar to it, but it's based off of millions of other people. If you look real closely, like the ears, like not quite right, but you could probably pass that photo and not know that that's not a real human, which is creepy but awesome. I love to show this one because of the nightmare foolishness of it. And my favorite thing of like AI is the worst it will ever be today. So in this top left-hand corner here, this is March of 2022. And down here in the bottom, this is December of 2023. This software allows you to put in a text prompt. So I don't know what this exact prompt was, but something along the lines of like, you know, blonde woman, green dress, car in the background. It was the exact same prompt used every single time, but at different periods of time and not that like long of a length of time. This one like still gives me nightmares. And you can see that it like starts to get like slowly and slowly better. This one looks like more like a human, but kind of like that uncanny valley of like the eyes are weird. This one, like the hair is just like super frizzy. This one starts to look a little bit more real, but then this one, if that was inside an ad, I wouldn't like instinctually be like, oh, that's an AI photo. Like they didn't even use a real person. It's pretty close. And this is from December of 2023. So just imagine in the next like 5 years, the photo outputs of this, the video outputs of this, you won't be able to tell the difference anymore. And whether that's good or bad, I don't think that's my decision, but it just kind of is what it is. Any questions on that?
So how do you get the photos chat? Like, do you just ask for a photo?
So in the paid version only, that's an option. And you can just say, hey, give me a photo, and the better prompt you give it, like a paragraph or two, the better output that you'll get inside ChatGPT. This example here is specifically with a piece of software called Midjourney. Now there's 11 billion of these apps. So Midjourney has a free version, but also a paid version. And it's the same concept though. You put in a text prompt and give an output. They've had like the quickest development in like nightmare fuel garbage to basically like real looking human in a short period of time. I would say that ChatGPT is more kind of like this-esque and good at creating like illustrations or kind of like a comic, or if that's the style that you're looking for, ChatGPT is great. But real photorealistic humans, Midjourney and Adobe Firefly, fantastic. Or like if there's not a budget in your business for hiring a photographer, all of my photographer friends say like, friends don't let friends use stock. This is a great way to create something that's not exactly real, not exactly stock. The chances of somebody getting this exact same output is very minimal. The chances of using a stock photo on like Getty or one of those places and somebody else using that same exact photo and the same brochure, very high. So I always say hire like a creative if you can, but if it's not in the budget, this can be a great way of like in between. Yes.
So I played around with this one time, and I made my photo only like the second one down.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was researching how to put in the right scripted words, and it was almost like it has its own language.
Yeah, Midjourney specifically is what you use. Yeah, Midjourney has all these like shorthand things of like dash 4K, dash like the dimension of the photo that you want. There's kind of like a cheat sheet of things you can pop into it. So you can mimic and mirror even like outputs of particular types of cameras and lighting and things like that. So there is a certain learning curve to it. So yeah, if you gave it like a very basic prompt, you might get something that looks, like this or this one, but a little bit of learning curve. You can get some stuff that looks like this, but this might be like a 3-paragraph prompt with a whole bunch of like shorthand of like how to do the lighting and like describing the whole scene pretty much. Any other questions? Right. So I like to end with this because this slide I change all the time, because whatever the future of AI was last week, it now exists, today. But this stuff doesn't exist yet, but it's coming very, very soon. So GPT-4 is like the current version of ChatGPT. GPT-5 is on the horizon. I think it's going to be like in the next couple of months, if I have to take my best educated guess on what Sam Altman and others are teasing at. But the biggest shift that it's going to have is its ability to reason and have memory. So that bot that I showed you how to create, it doesn't have memory in the traditional sense. If you load it with those documents about your company, it's going to remember that. But every time you have a conversation with it, like a new conversation, it's not going to remember if in that middle of the conversation you said, hey, don't do this again, or blah, blah, blah. It's like a goldfish pretty much. It just forgets all that information. With the newest version in those conversations, it's going to remember that and put it back into that bot without you having to like manually go back into that ChatGPT bot and give it new instructions. It'll just remember that you like this or you don't like that. So imagine like a world where you do that for like a year and it just learns everything about you, how you talk, things that you don't like, things that you do like a custom like learning model that knows everything about you and can create output that sounds just like you. I think that's maybe a year out, and we'll have something that is a general intelligence and something that surpasses humans in some aspects, for better or for worse. Yes. Dilemma? Social Dilemma?
Yeah.
The Netflix movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think in many aspects, it's better than humans. I mean, are we going to be replaced in a year, 5 years? I think there'll be a ton of jobs replaced. I'm not ignorant to that. I think it will create far more than it replaces, but really, really fast. So if you look at like the Industrial Revolution, that replaced a ton of jobs. At one point, being a blacksmith was a great job, and there was lots of people doing it. Now, like, raise your hand if you know anyone that's a blacksmith. What? 3 people. Oh my God. All right, fair enough. But still, 3 people. All right. But yeah, there's jobs that if we went back into the past and said, oh, at some point there's going to be like a guy that gets in front of people at 6 o'clock talking about like ChatGPT, be like, well, what are you talking about? Like, what is this? We don't know the jobs that are going to be existing in the next 5 to 10 years. So I'm more excited. But my best recommendation is to try this tech, the paid version of it, for like 30 days, every single day for at least an hour a day, if not more, but at least an hour a day for 30 days, regardless of what your job or your business is, because this is going to become as necessary as like knowing how to use Outlook. Like if you applied for a job and didn't know how to use Outlook, didn't know how to use Microsoft Word, probably not going to get that particular job. AI, I think, is going to be that just benchmark. You have a basic understanding of ChatGPT, and more people will be replaced that don't embrace AI technology and replaced with a human that really loves and embraces that technology, because they can create 10 times as much output with 10 times less the work. So to get started, get the paid version of it. Like, try it for a month. It's month to month. So if you don't like it, you're out $20. Get a couple less, mochiatos, whatever at Starbucks, and sacrifice for the life-changing experience that you'll get. And if you are really kind of strict on security at your organization or just personally, you can get the Teams version, and it's $25 per month. And this will be inside the slide deck, so if you text me at the end, you'll get access to this. But we have a ton of prompts, every single YouTube video channel, TikTok AI expert on AI and all these tools, everything that we use internally, we just publicly share with everyone. I'm not big on gatekeeping or hiding stuff. You're not signed up for any kind of drip campaigns or emails, so if you want to get that information, you can scan that QR code, or you can text me at the end and get access to all this info. And we also have a boot camp as an option. So this works really great for like a small to medium business, but also for individuals, and is completely customizable. So some folks just want like a 1 hour, show me all you can show me in 1 hour. Others want like a 1 to 6 week course for their marketing department or other departments, where I will come in, help them build bots, train them on building their brand personas so they actually can use it and embrace it, instead of a company just signing up for this and then the staff knowing not where to go, and then they just shut it off. Any final questions, thoughts, concerns for humanity? Yes.
High level question, are there any like guardrails on it?
Yeah, yes, there are many guardrails. There's actually hundreds of people at OpenAI that their job is to filter all the awful stuff that humans are putting in to this tech. Like for obvious reasons, we don't want somebody to be able to go inside there and say, how can I build like the best bomb with the most amount of fallout? If you were to ask it that, you're probably put on a list for one. And for two, it'll come back and say, I'm an AI model. That is not appropriate. Do not ask that again. Even down to like, if you say, how can I like bully this kid at school more effectively? It'll come back and say, that's not appropriate. And there's pros and cons to all these guardrails. Like obviously we should not be allowing it to be used for terrible things. But even if you ask it to come up with jokes, depending on like the jokes that you ask, it will come back and say, that's not appropriate. You can't do that. So someone at OpenAI is constantly looking at the chat logs, and that must be like an awful high turnover position because humans are the worst. But there are no real like legal guardrails on this yet beyond the current laws that we have, and that's a very like controversial thing at the moment. I don't see that happening anytime super soon. No matter where you fall politically, like they can't agree on if the sky is blue or not, and they don't know how TikTok works. So are they going to be able to come up with regulation for AI? Probably not. Sam Altman with OpenAI has said that he wants to like become part of this process of putting guardrails on it. I think probably mostly for monetary gain, so it keeps getting used. And as promised, if you want a copy of this presentation and all the data, you can just text Skynet to 802-865-2000. And yes, that is a Terminator reference. And that's all I got. Thank you. Thanks.
So I'm probably your AI groupie now. I've seen three of
Yep.
presentations.
And I don't think that I've ever had 3 people come to this AI presentation before.
The teams, is it just going from 20 to 25 bucks, or is it 20 plus 25?
So funny that you asked that. So I like immediately signed up for the day that it came out, and by default, when you click upgrade, it creates another workspace for $25 a month called Teams and keeps your like free